Welcome back. If you watched my previous video, you know that I've been trying to learn the Grand Prix Attack, which is a response by White to the Sicilian defense. I went through quite a few variations trying to familiarize myself with the opening after a couple of you had suggested it to me, because I had mentioned that I didn't know what to do against the Sicilian, because I haven't played e4 for very long. But almost immediately after making that video, I got a chance to play it. It just happened to be in a bullet game, and you can just ignore my opponent's rating. It says 896, and it says mine is 1,003. But when we played the game, both of us were rated 900 and something. After I won this game, spoiler alert, my opponent dropped below 900, and I went above 1,000. So that makes it look like we're a little bit unevenly matched, but we were more evenly matched while we were playing. Anyway, I just wanted to go through this. It looks like from the graph that I did make a couple of errors fairly early, maybe right after the opening as we transitioned into the middle game, but my opponent didn't take advantage of them. And then through the rest of the middle game, I slowly gained an advantage, and definitely by the end game, I had it. The chart here says I had one mistake and one miss. I don't know if that was part of the opening or not. I'm just going to take a look. I did play e4, and my opponent responded with the Sicilian, which is what we're talking about. Now, in my previous video, I had discussed and discovered that playing f4 now isn't that great, and black has lots of good responses to that kind of break things open. But if I play knight to c3 first, and then depending on what they do, play f4, it seems to work out better. Even though Stockfish evaluation has those two orders almost even, playing knight to c3 first seemed more playable to me, based on my style, the way that I look at the pieces. But anyway, so that's what I did. I played the knight to c3 first, and my opponent didn't play one of these top three moves here. Normally what I expect here is knight to c6. Stockfish here on chess.com says that's the best, or d6, I think I have seen after I play knight to c3. e6, it says, is also a decent move, but instead they played a6. And the engine says that's okay too. I don't know if they were worried about me trying to come in here or to plant a bishop over there. I wasn't. Here, I decided to play f4 based on my previous research. So I did. Stockfish says that's okay. They have several different choices. This leaves us close to even. Knight to f3 is among my best moves here, and that's what I played. Now, since they have already played a6, the engine thinks they can go ahead and play b5 now and start expanding right here without developing any pieces. g6 is also suggested by the engine. One thing I've noticed is that Stockfish definitely doesn't know opening principles the way that we're taught them. And of course, I've only learned them in the last year, and I'm still trying to cement them into my head, like develop a pawn or two to point at the center squares and then start getting pieces out. But Stockfish often just says, keep moving pawns. It says they can also play knight to f6 here. Instead, my opponent immediately went to pin this knight, which is fine. The knight's protected two different ways. I could go ahead and protect it again with this bishop, or I could just play d3 to get out this bishop, or even b3 to get the bishop out this way. One thing I normally don't do when this pin happens is immediately challenge it with h3, but I decided to this time. And again, this is a 2-minute bullet game, so very little time to think about this. And now their best move definitely is to take that knight, which they did. And of course, I take back with the queen. So we're still very close to 0 here. My plan at this point is to develop this bishop someplace and then castle. And Stockfish says my best move is to put it there. That's the one place that I wasn't going to put it because it blocks in this pawn. I think maybe Stockfish is suggesting this to help support the center, but I mean, that center pawn is pretty well protected. And also, I'm going to want to get my dark squared bishop out, and I probably don't want to get it out over there, but maybe I can. I don't know. But I can't explain this next move, and that was to put that in there. That's an inaccuracy. Okay, it definitely says I shouldn't have done that. So backing up here, yeah, I'm not going to play that, even though it is suggested as one of the top moves. But b3 and g3 are my next two best moves here, according to the engine. Would d3 have been bad here? Let's see, how bad would d3 have been? It looks like it wouldn't have been that bad. I still have about the same slight advantage that I would have had before playing it. Oh, and now that I've backed up, it suggests d3 as my top move. That happens a lot. This is one reason why, if you're looking at openings with Stockfish and you're curious about a move, just go ahead and try it and then back up and see if it's suggested. Sometimes it is. Yeah, it definitely says d3 would have been okay here too. I was strongly considering just playing bishop to e2 and then castling. But as I've said, instead I did play the knight into the center, which is inaccurate. Their best move is to just go right past it, which they did. And of course, I only have one move here that works. I don't remember how much time I spent on this move, but remember what I said a minute ago about not putting the bishop there because it would have blocked this pawn? It also would have prevented this move. Now, I don't know if backing up, instead of playing that, if I had played what the engine once again says is one of my best moves, if I had played that, would they have still put this knight in here? It doesn't suggest it, but then I definitely can't go here now. So I would have had to have just dropped back if I had played that suggested bishop move. Queen to f2 or queen to e3 or queen to d1 because I can't go there. Okay. Just curious, but that's what we played instead. And now because I did not put my bishop there, I basically have to put my queen there. The engine says anywhere else is not good. I'm not sure. Okay, c3 is my second best move, but I'm not sure why that's so much worse. The point is that they're not just aiming at my queen, they're also aiming at this c2 pawn, which would be a fork of my king and my rook. So I had to look at that. I can protect that c pawn by dropping all the way back or by going to one of those two squares. So I did pick one of those squares. Unfortunately, I picked the best one. They played their best move, and the engine says just to put this knight back here or b4. Wait, sorry, b4 is here, right? Wouldn't they just take? Oh, if they took it, then I could get their knight. Okay. I wish I had thought of that. That actually would be kind of cool. It would mess up their pawn structure. Right now, they have this pawn pointed at a center square and protecting that knight. But if I had just dropped back here, but then they wouldn't have to take it. Definitely says they wouldn't. It says that they would push this pawn forward. Really? But then I could just take that pawn. What? Am I reading that right? If I played knight to b4, it says they would play c3. Wait. Oh, I was not reading that right. They cannot possibly play c3, which is here. But it definitely says they wouldn't take. It says they would play d5, and then I would play c3. And then they would take here, and then I would take there. Wow. That would have gotten pretty complicated. I brought the knight back this way, which was also counted as an inaccuracy. And the reason is, the only thing that takes advantage of it is queen to h4, which forces a king move. I mean, you don't want to block with the pawn because they would just take. So basically, the king would have to move over, and I would have lost my right to castle. Any other move that my opponent makes does not count this as an inaccuracy, and they did not see queen to h4 check. They instead played g6, which was counted as a miss. Okay, and g3 is my best move here. That would support this pawn as well as prevent queen to h4. I played my third best move, which is pretty close, still very close to 0, which attacks their knight. But again, they're supposed to take advantage of this by playing here, which again forces a king move. But again, they didn't see it. They dropped their knight back. g3 again. Okay, yeah, I definitely need to be watching out for these diagonals. But of course, it was a bullet game. I'm just here to look and see how well I did with this opening. But I definitely should have seen this diagonal. That's something I need to practice no matter what time control I'm playing. I should have blocked that possible check preemptively so that I didn't have to move my king. But at this point, all these pawns are, shot forward anyway. Maybe I should move my king. I will say this, though. One of the reasons that I moved this pawn wasn't just to threaten their knight and get their knight to move. It was to give my queen a way to get out so I could put this bishop out someplace. And then I was still thinking about castling over here. So I did put my queen there, but that's counted as a mistake. And again, it's because they can check over here, but again, they didn't see it. They fan-catted the bishop. I don't know why they did that. It's not pointed at anything. I have, multiple pieces protecting that pawn there. Oh, and d3 is my best move here. Okay. Well, that took away one of the defenders of the c pawn, but it's well protected, and it helps defend the e pawn. It also gives me a place to develop these bishops, which is something I started thinking about at this point. And it does look like bishop to e2 and bishop to d2 are among my best moves. I did play one of those. I'm thinking about castling long. My opponent castled short, h4. Okay, well, that's an engine move, but bishop to e2 is my other one. Okay, now bishop to e2 has jumped up there. Yeah, that was one of the reasons I did this, and now I'm open. I can castle either way. Not all the way to b1, but to c1 or g1. My opponent is supposed to start pushing one of these pawns forward or play rook to c8. I don't know that I would have seen that if I was playing with the black pieces. I'm not sure why the rook on c8 is a good idea. Is it just because my queen's back here? But there's going to have to be a lot of pawn getting rid of in order for that rook to see my queen. I don't know. They didn't see that. They saw this, and I guess they were thinking about throwing the b pawn forward. Okay, I was not wrong to castle here, and I had to choose a side. I've got both sides selected here, but it does look like they have a little bit more space on this side. Of course, they have the knight guarding those two squares as well. They have the rook moved over here, aiming down this way, and they have the bishop pointed across here. Because of those reasons, I chose to castle to the king side. b5 is not listed among my opponent's best moves, but they did play it. Oh, and now I'm supposed to shove this forward now. Really? They have 3 pieces guarding that square, and I only have, I guess I have 3 pieces guarding that square as well. Not to mention, eventually my queen would be guarding it. But yeah, it says f5, or rook a to e1. or a3. I guess a3 does make some sense. It would add a defender to that square. It does look like they're thinking about pushing this b pawn forward. I just went ahead and challenged it right where it is, but that took away what little advantage I had built up. They're not supposed to take it. They're supposed to push forward here or start breaking open the center at this point, but they took it, which allows me to take back. Queen to b6 is one of their better moves. Obviously, they're, I think, aiming down here at this pawn. My best move is knight to c4. Did I find that? I did in a bullet game, and I've still got a minute left. My opponent's doing better on time than I am, though. They're supposed to drop this back, I guess, to try to get the rook in front of it. Or queen to b3. Really? If they put the queen on b3, am I supposed to take it? Yes. Or queen to b5. If they'd put the queen on b5, I would have taken that pawn. That was the other reason for putting the knight in here, I thought, was I could get this pawn. Well, they just dropped the queen back there once, so now I can take this pawn. And so I did. And now I'm challenging the queen again, but of course the queen can come down here and take this pawn, which is what my opponent had set up there for, and they remembered it. A lot of times, a lot of us will set up for something, but once it gets disrupted by, say, my knight moving in there, then you forget about your original plan. But my opponent, to their credit, remembered their original plan. I'm actually not supposed to take. I'm just supposed to protect my queen with a rook, or drop my queen down here so they'll trade down here instead. Well, I didn't know that. Oh, I could protect my queen this way too. So yeah, I had 3 different ways to protect my queen, all of which Stockfish thinks is better than what I did, which is just to take. But it still leaves me with an advantage, a little bit. And they took back, of course, but now this bishop's undefended, so I need to protect it. How can I protect it? Well, I can bring my knight back. It did its job in there, taking that pawn. Now, they just got an extra pawn down here, so we're even on material still. I'm surprised. Stockfish says their best move is to take this bishop, and I'll take back. Really? Oh, because then they would get this? Is that what it is? Yep. They would pick up another pawn, and then I would have to move my knight again back to where it is now, currently. Yeah, Stockfish thinks it's okay to get those 2 pieces for the rook. And then I guess they would still have control of the open file at that point because they would be able to get over there faster. Well, I'm not surprised that my opponent didn't see that. I certainly wouldn't have traded the rook here. Even if I had seen this, it still looks like you're losing a point of material. So my opponent retracted their rook, which I thought was a good move. I think obviously they're thinking of lining up here. But I can take this a6 pawn now. Did I? Did I see that? I did. Okay. I'm not really threatening the knight because the knight's protected. My opponent did what I thought they were going to do, which is bring the other rook over and double up here. I wasn't too worried because earlier when the bishop got threatened by this pawn and took, traded for the knight here, I have very early created this getaway square for my king. So I thought, okay, if this rook comes down here, I'll just take it. And when they take with the other one, I'll just put my king over here and it'll be fine. So I wasn't too worried about that. Another thing I thought about was if they ever did do something like that, their rooks would be off the back rank, whichever one ended up down here. And so I wanted rooks to be able to access their king. And it turns out that's my best move. So I'm happy that I found that. Oh, I spent that long on that move? No, I didn't. Okay, this is one of those times where the server doesn't read my move for a little while. I made this move, I want to say, in 5 or 10 seconds, but it took off almost 30 seconds of my time. Yeah, that's kind of rotten here. I'm surprised. Did I win this game? I thought I won this game, but with that much time remaining, my opponent still has a full minute. Now, I honestly did think they were going to check here, but I did not know that it was not listed as one of their best moves. That gives me a bigger and bigger advantage. Of course, I'm supposed to take it. I did. I assumed they were going to take back, and then I'm going to get my king out of there. The engine says to go this way with it instead of the hidey hole that I made earlier, but I did. I found that. Pretty happy with that. The idea, of course, is that this bishop needs protecting, and if I have to retract this bishop one way or another, my king will be protecting it too. My knight also has a pretty safe square to go back to as well. Right now, it's protecting this bishop. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. They're supposed to bring their rook back now, but they did. I guess they saw that I was aiming for that back rank. Bishop to d1 is my best move, or rook to a3. What does rook to a3 do? I'm not sure. I just thought about, I can maybe start hopping in here with my knight, and that's what I did. It says it's excellent. I'm still up plus something, but they're supposed to start trying to break this open because, I mean, I have a little bit of a shell around my king, but it's not great, and they can start breaking it open one way or another, or even aim this way to keep my bishop, I guess, pinned to guarding that pawn before they add some extra pressure on it this way. Those are all decent moves on their part. But instead, they dropped this knight back here. Now, it's not among my best moves to take it. I think not because, yeah, if they took back with the rook, then they would be guarding this rook. But I did think if I could attack their rook with my knight, then while it was busy getting out of danger, I could just take their knight since they weren't defending it anymore. So that's what I did, and it turned out to be best, and I'm at +4 now. Wait, when did it jump to +4? We're at +1 here. Was them moving their knight back so bad? It was just inaccurate. Yeah, we're at +1.7, and it says inaccurate, but that goes to 0.4. That's more than inaccurate. That's a mistake, if not a blunder. And I am supposed to threaten the rook. Okay, that's where we jumped so much because the game review counted that as inaccurate, but it's actually much worse. And they are supposed to put this back, and then I would get their rook for that. But instead, they moved the rook coming after this bishop. It's my best move to take this knight. It's my second best move to just get this bishop out of danger temporarily. But I went that way with it, which was counted as a miss. So I should have just taken the knight because I would have been threatening the other knight. And the problem with this move is that it gives up this pawn. I definitely, if I was going to, I mean, that's what I played was bishop to e3. But yeah, it gives up this pawn, whichever way I go. Why didn't I see e1? And why is it not listed? I could have still been protecting that pawn if I'd gone to e1. But also you can see my time is, because of that 30-second jump earlier that really wasn't fair, I'm really short on time at this point. My opponent messed up again here, which says that's a mistake. That's at least a mistake because it allows me to check, which was a great move. They have to block. They have to block with either the bishop or this knight, because the knight would be protected there. The rook going back would probably be bad because I could take it with my knight. But instead, they did the right thing there, and I'm supposed to take this pawn. That's the top move listed by the engine. I did the second best move, which was just to take the bishop. And of course, they have to get out of check. Now I took that pawn, which wasn't my best move anymore. Now my opponent is starting to get fairly low on time, but you can see that I have 3 seconds left. Oh, I have a mate in 7. Only if I will take this free knight. Oh, I did. Well, that's good. And my opponent did not play. Yeah, they played one of their best moves, which was to come down here. I'm not sure why that's one of the best moves. Is it aiming for this? Knight to f6 would have been my best move. I think, is that because it protects the rook coming over here? Yeah, okay, knight to f6 would have been protected by the bishop and would have prepared moving the rook over here. I didn't quite see that. I saw my second best move, which was just to check with the bishop now. The king has to go to h6, and I should have come over one right now. What would that have been in preparation for? Oh, I guess this? Oh, I just took the f-pawn because I had 3 seconds left. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. My opponent's only way to slow down mate is to take this bishop. I guess that's because my bishop is guarding that square right now. Instead, they did that. Now, I will admit I did not know that this was going to be checkmate. It looks like I have 2 different checkmates. Bishop to g5 or g7 would have been checkmate. I thought when I moved my bishop down there, it was just going to force their king forward. But instead, that was just mate because they didn't take my bishop when they were supposed to. I honestly didn't intend to go through this whole game, but it was my first chance, my first time playing the Sicilian Grand Prix Attack, which the opening book here on chess.com just calls the Sicilian defense closed. And it was called that all the way back when I played knight to c3. It's closed. So now when they played, sorry, my old arrows stay there for some reason. When they played this and I played the f4, it does not call that the Grand Prix Attack. Okay, well, I thought it was when I played it. I just now realized when I got to the end that it's not called that. Okay, well, Wikipedia called it that, and I know Wikipedia is not the greatest, most accurate source in the world, but it's a pretty solid source most of the time for most things. And basically it said if you play f4 as your second move after the Sicilian, it's the Grand Prix Attack, but it said lots of grandmasters have started playing the knight to c3 first and then f4 on move 3. And it was still referring to that as the Grand Prix Attack, so I'm going to. But anyway, I did okay with it. And it was a bullet game, and as you saw, when I got checkmate, I only had 3 seconds left. And I didn't know that it was going to be checkmate because I forgot about my own bishop down here. I did know this pawn was guarding, but I thought this was going to push the king forward, and that I was going to have to bring my knight in, and then the king was going to have to go forward again, and then I was going to have to, I don't know what I was going to do at that point. Maybe push this pawn? No, because then they would take that one. All I knew is I was almost out of time and I had to keep checking before they got me. All right. But thank you for spending your time here, and those of you who did suggest the Grand Prix Attack, I appreciate it. I'm going to continue trying it for a few more games, both Bullet and Blitz, and if in my next Rapid game, if my opponent plays the Sicilian, I guess I'll try it there too. I need something that I'm familiar with when I see the Sicilian, instead of just going, I guess I'll play knights and pawns, and I really don't know. But now I have something that I can at least lean on. So thank you. We'll see you next time.